But let me set up with an outline of the book of Genesis. 1 to 11 are the origins of the world. Think of it as the macro view. It begins with the story of the fall of man from his original state of perfection as God created him to be. And then 12 to 50, the rest of the book, zooms in, takes a micro view into the origins of the nations, and then specifically one nation that God chose to be a microcosm of human behavior, of human nature, out of whom would come the Messiah, who would be a blessing to all nations. Genesis is an incredible book because it records people in a very elemental state. It talks about the elements of nature, it describes occupations, it describes families, it describes mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters, conflicts between these people, the interplay between elements of nature and humanity. So it's very relatable in that sense. And as I said earlier, is that it sets up God's plan for the salvation of humanity from the very beginning. God has provided for redeeming man, although man has fallen from his state of perfection because of the sin, and he is now under the judgment of God, but God has not abandoned man. There is a plan for his redemption. Of course, that will unfold over history with time. Things become clearer with the passage of time. Now, a lot of people object to Genesis because it records some shocking events. It's got violence, it's got incest, it's got betrayal, it's got family fights and conflicts. Like I said, it is a real book. It is not condoning these events necessarily. It is simply recording them. What is important to remember about the book of Genesis also is that Genesis is recording generational history. So it shows you the effects of what happens if one individual sins, the ramifications of that sin over his lifetime and beyond his lifetime, the impact on his legacy. So by following the arc of a man's lifetime and then his generations after him, it helps us understand that the impact of sin is not temporal. It is not limited. It has consequences far after our lifetimes. So it presents a very powerful lesson. In that sense, it is actually unlike a lot of other religious books that presents a sanitized version of heroes and presents them as these mythical figures who cannot do any wrong. They have not sinned. They are impeccable. The Bible is not like that. Of course, it also shows the virtues of its heroes, whether it is Abraham or Jacob or David. It shows how they exemplify obedience, integrity, how they fall short but then reconcile, how they repent. And although they are in many cases bad examples, they also grow as mature believers who show faith in God, who are examples of sacrifice, who devote themselves to their family, to their communities. So it's a very real book. It is not presenting mythology. It is not presenting narratives of people who are not capable of doing any wrong. It is recording people in their rawness. And to us, it is giving warnings of what can happen if you take sin lightly and casually and don't think of the implications beyond yourself. But it also shows the impact of redeeming grace, that you are not the sum total of your mistakes, that there is more to your life than the totality of your errors, that God is incredibly gracious And he's kind, he's willing to restore, redeem, forgive the most egregious of faults. So it's a great telling. It packages humanity in all of its drawbacks and then God's intervention in all of his incredible faithfulness.